My name is Carlie. I'm 32, so I identify as queer just because it's less of a binary term. Like gay and lesbian is very much a binary term, and I don't necessarily want to plot myself anywhere in between there, especially since I've been out for about 14 years now. It just doesn't feel right to give myself just like one specific term. So I much prefer the umbrella term of queer. As for gender expression, I identify as cisgender. But then there's a whole other thing to talk about as well that kind of goes beyond those two aspects, and that's intersectionality. And I'm a very intersectional person. So I recognize that I'm white and I have white privilege. I'm also disabled, or invisibly disabled specifically. I have a hearing impairment, and I've been hard of hearing my entire life, being female. That's another such intersection. And then there's being queer as well. That's another such intersection. So to be able to give myself like one label is really, really hard because there's so many different parts, I guess, to being me or to being like part of the community and being intersectional. When I initially came out, I was 18 years old. I was in my second year of college here at Fanshawe, and coming out was actually incredibly easy, and I'm super fortunate for the experiences I've had. I know that coming from a place of privilege and being white and being brought up in like a really accepting household, that I actually got off pretty lucky. I didn't really come across a whole lot of homophobia myself. I haven't really come across a lot of people not accepting me for who I am. But that being said, there's still facets of the community that don't get that opportunity, that don't have that kind of privilege. And I've come to the point where like I recognize that and I appreciate that, but that has not been my experience. Mostly people like me for who I am, and people take me for who I am, and they don't necessarily get caught up with like all the intersections. That's just more of like a societal thing rather than like an individual person thing. I don't really care what other people think of me. Like I said, I've been out for about 14 years. It's not really new to me. And I mean, when you come out, you're just constantly coming out for the rest of your life when you belong to like the queer community. So that in itself is a little bit of a challenge. But for me personally, I don't really come across any sort of issues with kind of explaining it. It's just like, hey, this is me. I'm invisibly disabled, I'm queer, I have a great partner, and this is my life. I think the intersection of being female and queer is kind of challenging because previously when I identified as a lesbian, it's very much sexualized by straight white men. So that in itself has been a little bit of a challenge. That's kind of why I've shifted towards being queer, just because you don't necessarily get that unwanted attention so much. And I mean unwanted attention, like if you walk down the street holding onto your partner's hand, and people will catcall you, regardless of your sexual orientation or regardless of what your gender expression is as well. I mean, there's other issues too that are involved with being queer. There's the gay wage gap, which is a big issue, where heterosexuals tend to get paid more than people who are queer. Homophobia is still super rampant, especially in this day and age when we're seeing a lot of like anti-Black and anti-Asian sentiment happening. So there's still issues and there's still a lot of stuff that we're combating. Have I received any sort of differential treatment over my sexuality? Not so much. Again, I've been out for so long that it's not really much of a question. I think I'm pretty obvious what my sexual orientation is just from looking at me. And that kind of helps to my advantage as well. I don't know, like I don't really have a lot of issues with that. I've had people before want to fix me, but that's pretty much it. So like I'm really privileged in that sense where I don't necessarily get that judgment right away. I feel like Fanshawe has really supported me, mostly because I came out, kind of figured everything out when I was like the ripe young age of 18, and I was in my second year of college here. And it was just turned out to be like a really positive environment for me to get involved in. And it actually started after I graduated college the first time, because I came back much later and did a whole bunch of other stuff. But I actually got involved initially with Spectrum Fanshawe in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. And that really kind of helped me find a bit of a community around here and kind of like latch on and kind of discover myself more, I guess. So a little club like that actually went quite a long way. And I ended up becoming president of that club, and then worked my way up, became vice president of the FSU, and then president of the FSU. and becoming like the first openly gay president also of the FSU, which is pretty exciting, and I was pretty proud of that role as well. And then I spent some time on the Board of Governors, and I have so many great contacts here, and I've had such great experiences that I now work here. I work in the library as a reference specialist. I mean, I've gotten to the point in my life where I've become like the elder queer for a lot of people, especially a lot of young people who are just kind of like discovering themselves. I've been approached multiple times where they've come to me because I'm like this elder figure, and I just kind of seem like I have everything figured out, but I haven't. So that's kind of been really fun. I actually really enjoy that. I kind of enjoy supporting people as they come out, as they kind of like realize like who they are. I think it's a pretty big moment in their lives, and I really like being part of that. My message would be two things. Be unapologetically you, because you have so much going for you, and you have so many different interests, and you have so many different things you can bring to the world that people will appreciate. And they'll see that first and foremost over your sexual orientation or your gender expression. The other thing is just try to find like love in the community. Like not somebody to date, not like intimate love, but just like friendship, support, that kind of thing. Ask for pronouns. You don't necessarily expect somebody, and this refers to any sort of community, don't expect the person from that community to explain everything to you as well. That's not necessarily beneficial, and it kind of puts them on the spot. That's not really something you want. Also consider intersectionality. So considering building environments for people, not just queer people, but like people of color, people who identify with some sort of disability or anything, but be able to create a safe environment for them. Consider principles of like universal design, creating an environment that's safe and comfortable and built for absolutely like everybody within the population, would definitely go a very, very long way for creating acceptance and creating environments where people are just comfortable.